Welcome! In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the fascinating history of Toronto. Known for its vibrant culture, diverse population, and stunning skyline, Toronto's story begins thousands of years ago and spans through many transformations. From indigenous communities to a colonial outpost, and from an industrial center to a modern global city, let's explore how Toronto became the incredible city it is today. Part 1. Indigenous Roots and Early Life. Long before Toronto became a bustling metropolis, it was home to indigenous peoples. The area, known as Kakaranto in Mohawk, means where there are trees in the water. This referred to wooden fishing weirs indigenous people placed in the rivers, highlighting their intimate knowledge of the land. Toronto was an important meeting and trade area for indigenous communities, including the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, Iroquois, and Anishinaabe. These groups established trails, trade networks, and settlements, laying the foundation for what would become Toronto. Their relationship with the land was spiritual and sustainable, built on respect for nature. Part 2. European arrival and the French Fort Riel. European exploration in the area began in the early 1600s when French explorers arrived, establishing trading relationships with indigenous nations. In 1750, the French built Fort Riel near today's Exhibition Place to expand their fur trade and to compete with the British, who were advancing from the south. Though the French abandoned Fort Riel in 1759 during the 7 Years' War, this brief occupation marked the beginning of European settlements in Toronto. The city's early history of European influence was shaped by competition between the French and the British. Part 3. The establishment of York. After the British gained control of Canada following the American Revolutionary War, British loyalists fleeing the United States migrated to what is now southern Ontario. In 1793, British Lieutenant Governor John Graves Simcoe arrived and established the town of York, named after the Duke of York, on the northern shore of Lake Ontario. Simcoe selected York as the new capital of Upper Canada, Ontario due to its strategic location and natural harbor. Fort York was built to protect the settlement, which was initially a small colonial outpost. However, Simcoe's plans included future growth, and York quickly became a focal point for British military and political power in the region. Part 4. The War of 1812 and the Battle of York. The War of 1812 between the United States and Britain had a lasting impact on York. In 1813, American forces attacked York, burning much of the town, including the Legislative Assembly. The Battle of York was a significant event, as it demonstrated York's vulnerability and its strategic importance. Despite the destruction, York rebuilt and eventually prospered, symbolizing the resilience of its early settlers. This event left a legacy of patriotism and determination that would shape the city's identity. Part 5. Growth, Rebellion, and Becoming Toronto. By the 1830s, York was rapidly growing, but political tensions were rising. The Family Compact, a small group of elite families, dominated political and economic power in the area, causing frustration among reformers who wanted democratic change. This tension led to the Upper Canada Rebellion in 1837, led by reformer William Lyon Mackenzie. Although the rebellion was unsuccessful, it fueled democratic reforms in Canada. In 1834, York was officially renamed Toronto, adopting an Indigenous name that reflected the city's roots. This change marked a new chapter, as Toronto evolved into a larger, more politically conscious community. Part 6. The arrival of immigrants and the industrial boom. The second half of the 19th century saw Toronto transform from a colonial town into an industrial hub. Railroads connected the city with other regions, and industries like manufacturing, brewing, and textiles began to thrive. This industrial boom attracted waves of immigrants, including Irish, Scottish, Italian, and Eastern European communities, adding to Toronto's cultural diversity. By 1900, Toronto's population was booming, and the city began modernizing with streetcars, paved roads, and improved infrastructure. This period also saw the development of Toronto's financial sector, laying the groundwork for its future as Canada's economic powerhouse. Part 7. The Great Fire of Toronto and City Expansion. In 1904, a devastating fire swept through downtown Toronto, destroying numerous buildings and causing millions in damages. The Great Fire of Toronto spurred new building regulations and safety codes, which shaped the city's modern architecture and infrastructure. Following the fire, Toronto continued expanding outward, annexing surrounding communities like Rosedale, the Annex, and Parkdale. As the city grew, so did its economy, and Toronto became a center for finance, education, and culture in Canada. Part 8. The Great Depression and World War II. The Great Depression of the 1930s severely affected Toronto as unemployment soared and economic growth stalled. The city's response included public works projects to improve infrastructure and provide jobs, which helped mitigate some of the hardship. World War II brought new opportunities, with Toronto becoming a hub for military production. The war also fostered a sense of unity and patriotism. After the war, returning soldiers and a baby boom further increased the city's population, transforming it into a truly modern urban center. Part 9. Post-war immigration and multicultural transformation. The post-war era saw an influx of immigrants, particularly from Europe, the Caribbean, and Asia. This transformed Toronto into one of the most multicultural cities in the world. Neighborhoods like Little Italy, Chinatown, and Greektown flourished, creating a rich cultural mosaic. In the 1960s and 70s, Toronto's skyline began to change with the construction of iconic buildings like the CN Tower, City Hall, and modern high-rises. The city became known for its arts, music, and culture, and it hosted major events like Carabana, celebrating the city's diversity. Part 10. The Megacity Era and Economic Growth. In 1998, Toronto underwent a significant restructuring, merging with nearby municipalities like North York, Scarborough, and Etobicoke to form the Megacity. This controversial change created a larger, more unified Toronto with a stronger voice in Canadian politics. Today, Toronto is Canada's largest city and a leading global center for finance, technology, arts, and entertainment. The city's diversity continues to be its strength as it attracts newcomers from around the world who bring their cultures, languages, and talents. Modern challenges and achievements. While Toronto faces challenges like housing affordability and urban congestion, it remains one of the world's most livable cities. The city has earned a reputation for environmental sustainability, progressive policies, and innovation in sectors like technology and film. Toronto's evolution reflects the values of inclusion, resilience, and creativity that define Canada itself. From its Indigenous roots and humble beginnings as Fort York to its rise as a diverse global metropolis, Toronto's story is one of growth, transformation, and unity. It's a city that has evolved with the times, embracing change and diversity. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the fascinating history of Toronto. Stay tuned for more stories about Canada's incredible cities.